Ready for a deep dive? We're tackling Nietzsche today. You've gotten started with Beyond Good and Evil, and now you're ready for his bigger works. So, let's explore two of his most famous and often misunderstood works, The Antichrist and Thus Spoke Zarathustra.
And trust me, those two, they're like a philosophical one-two punch.
Right. The Antichrist, that's where we'll start. Not your typical light reading.
No, not at all. Sounds a little intense.
Right.
Like a fiery sermon against, well,
Exactly. But Nietzsche, he always loved to shake things up. He wasn't going after, like, a literal Antichrist here, more like a mindset. He calls it Christian, but it's not what you might think.
Yeah, he actually says somewhere, and I'm paraphrasing, the Christian, in his book, it's not about, like, following Jesus. It's more this whole way of thinking that's against what makes life, well, life.
Okay, so tell me more about that. What does he mean?
Like, it thrives on resentment, this Christian mindset, pity, dreaming of another world instead of this one,
Wow, okay, not holding back.
Not even a little.
Yeah.
And to really get it, you have to understand the world Nietzsche was living in. Rapid social change, science shaking things up the church's authority, definitely being questioned.
So intense times, like those ideas were dynamite. He even uses that word dynamite, talking about Christianity's effect on society.
He does. And the sin and punishment idea, that's the worm of sin. Strong language was kind of his thing. Get people's attention, make them really think.
Makes sense. You called it a philosophical one-two punch earlier. Have you ever felt that? Like an idea that just explodes your thinking. Exhilarating and kind of scary at the same time.
Absolutely. That's Nietzsche. Fascinating. A&D unsettling. Like he's saying, wake up, think for yourselves.
So that's Nietzsche, the intellectual bomb thrower. But then we get Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And it's like we've gone from a boxing ring to a mountaintop, maybe?
Perfect way to put it. We see a different Nietzsche now. Poetic, almost. Like a prophet,
Yeah, I see what you mean.
All these complex ideas, he channels them through Zarathustra, this wise guy coming down from the mountains.
Okay, so picture this. Zarathustra's been up in the mountains, 10 years? Just thinking.
Yeah.
And then he comes down with these messages, but they're like riddles more than anything. He even says, what would your happiness be if you had not those for whom you shine? Deep, but also kind of confusing.
That's the beauty of Nietzsche. No easy answers. He wants you to think, to wrestle with the ideas. Even the title, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, it's a paradox, isn't it?
It is.
How can one voice speak to everyone and no one at the same time?
You've got a point. It's like he's saying, here's this wisdom, but you figure out what it means, which is kind of what we're doing in this deep dive, giving you the tools to unpack it all. How do these two very different books, how do they connect?
Exactly. It's like a puzzle. You've got all these pieces, but then you start to see the bigger picture.
And that bigger picture is what makes Nietzsche so relevant, even today. Two contrasting voices, the critic in The Antichrist and the poetic sage in Zarathustra. But there are these themes that pop up in both, like recurring threads that connect them.
Right. The will to power, for example. People misunderstand that one a lot.
Yeah, they think it's just about, dominating others, right?
Exactly. But for Nietzsche, it went way deeper. This drive in all living things to strive, overcome, create.
And then there's this whole thing about pity. He saw it as something that weakens us, that keeps us from reaching our full potential. And then, of course, the eternal return.
Oh, the eternal return. Now that one is a real head scratcher.
Okay, so eternal return. Sounds a little sci-fi, right? Time loops, alternate realities.
Think less Back to the Future. More like the ultimate what if. Like imagine having the same conversation word for word forever.
Okay, word.
Would you be into it?
Or
terrified? That's the kind of thing he wants you to think about.
Okay, I see. So it's not about literally going back in time, more about the weight of our choices, maybe? If every action had infinite consequences because we'd repeat it forever, wouldn't that change how you live now?
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility.
Yeah.
For your life right now. Because in a way, he's saying we are living eternally by repeating our choices, our patterns, over and over.
Whoa. Okay, give me a sec to process this. It's like he's asking, are you living a life you'd want to repeat forever? No pressure, right?
Right. Talk about motivation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's Nietzsche, pushing us to examine our lives, strive for more. And that's where Thus Spoke Zarathustra comes back in, with that image of the tightrope walker.
Oh yeah, the guy over the abyss. Not exactly relaxing, is it?
Not at all. But that's the point. Humanity, we're on that tightrope, always pushing limits.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes we fall, but the striving, the risk, that's what makes it worth it, even with the pain, the suffering.
Okay, I get that. So where does the Christian mindset from before, how does that fit in with all this?
Good question. Remember how we were saying Nietzsche? He wasn't just critiquing religion.
Yeah.
Anything that makes us passive, that was his target.
Right, like someone else telling you what to think, how to live.
Exactly. He wants radical self-creation. You become the author of your own values, your own life, even with that abyss staring you down.
Taking control of the story, not letting someone else write it for you. But where do you even start? It's exciting, but also kind of terrifying, you know?
Well, that's where another big idea from Zarathustra comes in. The three metamorphoses of the spirit. This metaphor, it describes self-transformation.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. Metamorphosis, is this where we get into the camel, the lion, and the child?
You got it. Starts with the camel. Weighed down by burdens, traditions, expectations, you name it. That's where we all start, carrying the weight.
Yeah, I think we've all felt that, weighed down. So how do we get out from under it? What's next?
That's where the lion comes in, the rebellious spirit, saying no to those pressures, finding the courage to break free, think for yourself.
Right, not just following the herd, defining your own WN beliefs. But if we're not the camel, weighed down, and we're not the lion, roaring, then what's the final stage? What about the child?
Ah, yes, the child. This is where it gets really interesting. It's like he's saying to really embrace life, you have to reclaim that. Childlike wonder, not childishness. There's a difference.
I see what you mean. Children, they're curious, always asking questions, open to new experiences, not
Yeah.
jaded yet.
Exactly. That's the key. Recapturing that spirit. Joy in creation, in discovery. Seeing the world with fresh eyes, even if you've lived in it a long time.
So it's not about literally being a child again. It's more about tapping back into those qualities that let you see the world as a place of possibility.
Exactly. Shedding those old ideas. Approaching life with wonder. Willingness to embrace the unknown.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see how it all fits together. Will to power, eternal return, becoming like a child. It's like this roadmap, right? For a more meaningful life.
That's it. And it's not like rules, really. More like embracing these qualities that help you grow. Like that Zarathustra quote, man is a rope stretched between the animal and the Superman, a rope over an abyss. We're always reaching, striving.
So we're all supposed to be philosophers now, pondering the eternal return all day long. How does this work in real life?
It's not about being a Nietzsche scholar. It's about taking these ideas and applying them, asking tough questions about your values, your choices. It's about the courage to be authentic, even if it means going against the grain.
So less about the answers, more about the journey, the questions, trying to become a little more Superman every day.
Exactly. Remember, he doesn't tell us what Superman is. He wants us to define it for ourselves. What does that mean in your life? What are you reaching for?
I love that. So we've been on this deep dive into Nietzsche's mind. Someone's listening, they're fired up, right? Ready to embrace their inner lion, maybe reconnect with that childlike wonder. Where do they go from here?
Honestly, experience it firsthand. Get the Antichrist. Get Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And don't just read them. Wrestle with them. Underline, argue, let those ideas challenge you.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to really get into it, the language, the metaphors, the sheer audacity of it. That's where the magic happens, you know, when it clicks, it becomes personal.
And as you're on this journey, remember that question Zarathustra asks, are you a light to yourself? Let that guide you as you dig deeper into the texts and into yourself.
It's not just reading Nietzsche, it's letting his ideas light that fire in you. Ask those big questions, embrace the unknown, create a life that's truly yours. And until next time, keep those philosophical wheels turning.